Beyond functions and arguments, there is one more concept in R which is crucial to understand, and this is how do we save something as a new object. This is not very difficult, but it is a little bit unusual if you have never programmed before. So if you execute a command in R, you would expect to get results. This is like you have used SPSS before. You click through the menu and then at the end you click OK, then you expect to get results. Most of the time this is not what happens in R. Rather, if you execute a function in R, then generally nothing happens. When I started with R, this was quite a foreign concept to me. But later you will see that makes a lot of sense. R expects you to save the output in an object and then use another function to actually look at the output. At the beginning it looks a little unnecessary. You will see to have an outcome as an object allows you to continue to work with this outcome. It will feel like you're an artist who shapes a sculpture out of a stone step by step. And I think this makes programming quite addictive because you get into the flow of shaping and it's very different from an experience like SPSS where you run something and then it's done. There is no flow. Okay, as an example now, we try to save the mean score of the speed variable in a new object, which we call speed.m. Okay, this is how we do it. We simply come up with a new name to create a new object. As you can see here, I just called it speed.m. Then we have to assign the function or the outcome of the function with the assign sign, which is here, as you can see, a less than sign and a hyphen. And both together should look like an arrow. So whatever happens on the right side, we are executing the function, we assign then to the left side to the object. Okay, let's do this in RStudio. So I type in speed.m, then comes the assign sign, and then on the right side I use the command we have used before. We are saying to compute the mean from the variable speed, which can be found in the cars dataset. So now if you run this, you can see now nothing happens. So the outcome has been saved in the object which I called here speed.m. Now if I want to look at the outcome, I just can highlight speed and run it, which gives me then the result. Or I can call now the summary function and run this. In our case, that doesn't make a lot of sense to ask for a summary of a simple number, as you can see. But if you run a model, then the summary function makes a lot of sense. Now we also have to learn the rules how to label an object. And you can see there are some rules. So the name has to start with a letter and not with a number. The name, however, can contain letters, numbers, dots or underscore characters. Although you can use either dots or underscore, I would definitely suggest to use dots. That's much more common in R than using underscore. However, what you have to avoid is using names for existing functions. So if you run a function called mean, don't save the object with the name mean because that would override the function. So be careful to not use function names. And you will learn all the function name now step by step. Now I have a last and final points about objects, and that's the discussion about should you label your object in a very specific way or a more generic way. As an example here, if you read in a data set, do you want to label it just df for data frame? Or do you want to be very specific to say what kind of data set you use here, for example, a long name trade.study.survey 2020. I have seen people doing both, so some people using very generic names and others are very specific. So for me it's much easier to work with generic names. So I work with a lot of different projects and I can't remember each specific name. So for me it is very useful to be generic. And if I shape it and I have to rename it, then I really do df1, df2, df3 and so on, and I can see the progression of how this object is shaped. but I never use a very specific name. But at the end of the day, this is totally up to you. You can make it as specific and as long as you want. But this is totally up to you. If you want to be very specific in giving names, then R has hardly any limit. I think it can be as long as you want.